It says it can't.
Let's try and send it again.
Okay.
Yep, now we're in.
Okay. We're sorry, but we don't recognize the name. They didn't recognize it.
Okay.
Don't worry. We're good.
There you go.
All right.
Good evening. Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the secretary please note the roll?
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Sambito is present, Commissioner Booth is present, Commissioner Hamilton is present, Vice Chairman Clymer is present, Chairman Kish is present, Commissioner Hegedus is absent, Commissioner Wang is absent and trying to call in right now. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I will need a vote to be taken to excuse members unable to attend due to extenuating circumstances. Please ask for a motion and a second.
A motion.
I have a motion and a second. Please enter your vote as soon as the vote is up. The motion is by Vice Chairman Clymer, second by Commissioner Booth.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on August 17th and September 14th, 2022. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the August 17th, 2022 minutes? I have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Second by Commissioner Hamilton. Enter your votes.
And just waiting on Vice Chairman Clymer. Thank you. Motion passes.
And now I need a motion and a second to approve the September 14th, 2022 minutes. I have a motion by Commissioner Sambito and a second by Commissioner Booth. Please enter your vote.
Motion passes.
Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda item this evening. Are there any speaker cards for non-agenda items?
I have one speaker card that did not specify an agenda item for Fred Cochran. Did you wish to speak on a non-agenda item? Was it a non-agenda item, or are you looking to speak on an agenda item?
Actually, I think it's an agenda item.
Okay, just checking.
Couldn't figure out that.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. No, I do not have any speaker cards for non-agenda items.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on a non-agenda item for tonight? Seeing none, okay. This is the opportunity for commission members to disclose any ex parte communications they may have had prior to this meeting on any item scheduled for discussion on this agenda. You're live.
As we knew last month, we had someone from the audience speaking on a non-agenda item, but it was for tonight, so we've all heard that. And as this pertains closely to Pebble Creek where I live, I'm on the Pebble Creek E-Group. I've seen 2 or 3 emails on the E-Group talking about this meeting and what's going to go on. I didn't open them, but I just had seen them, so that's what I've seen.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Clymer.
And just to make you aware, Commissioner Wang is now on the phone.
Commissioner Wang, can you hear us? Sometimes there's a delay.
Said he was in. Commissioner Wang? I'll keep working.
Okay, no worries. Commissioner Wang, can you hear us? I think he's on mute. Okay, well, agenda item number 2 is a use permit for the McDonald's in Palm Valley Phase 5. I will open the public hearing. Senior Planner Alex Listinsky will present. Before we begin, I know there's a lot of people that have come out to talk about this particular item. So just to keep things moving, each of you will have 3 minutes to discuss your point. If after several people the same issue is reoccurring, just ask for you to understand on our parts and everyone else's parts. If there's something new, please bring it up to us. And also, please note on your piece of paper what it is you object to, show that you object, and the city council will also read these and take into account everything you say on the paper and everything you say here tonight. The city council meeting will be hearing this item number on November 24th. October 20th, I apologize, October 24th. So please, everyone that wants to, speak out on this particular item, please show up to that one as well. Thank you. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the commission, good evening. My first item before you tonight is the PV10 McDonald's use permit. Okay. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Saraville Avenue and Indian School Road. The property is approximately 0.6 miles east of the 303, and this 303 corridor, just to the west of where the site sits, also known as the PV 303 area, is where sites like UPS, Sub-Zero, REI, those are located. Just zooming in, you can see the vacant parcel is on this corner is adjacent to the Palm Valley Phase 5 single-family development to the east and the Pebble Creek Phase 2 single-family to the south. The proposed drive-through site is located at the southwest corner of this vacant parcel, which I'll show a little bit more closely in my further slides. The subject property is currently a part of the Palm Valley Phase 5 Planned Area Development, also known as a PAD. That PAD was adopted in 2003 by Ordinance 03-858 and included a mix of uses, including most of the single-family and multifamily residential that's built today, and commercial uses that have either been developed or otherwise rezoned or developed. That's what I just said. The subject property within the red box here indicated that the zoning within the PAD is NC, or neighborhood commercial, which per the 2003 ordinance applied to the city's C1 neighborhood commercial zoning and development standards to the property. So my first request before you, like I said, is a use permit. Restaurants are a permitted use within the C1 zoning district. The drive-through portion of this restaurant and distance to the residential zoning district is what is triggering the need for the use permit. If McDonald's or any other restaurant proposed a non-drive-through site, there would be no need for this use permit. And I'll go through the evaluation criteria down in some other slides, but for drive-throughs, but to continue this discussion, it should be noted that the McDonald's portion of the request consists of 1.5 acres, and building square footage is planned for approximately 4,500 square feet and a single-story building. So like I mentioned, this is the proposed site plan. At the southwest corner of the vacant parcel, 1.5 acres is proposed to be utilized as the McDonald's site. To the east, a vacant commercial pad would remain, and there are currently no plans for development at this time. The entry off Saraville Road would be a full access and the primary access to the site. Off of Indian School Road, a secondary access is proposed for right-in, right-out only. And that entry point and proposed cross-access easement, which you can see outlined here on the site plan, would be needed with the development of the McDonald's for that secondary access. The drive-through lane was proposed on the site to minimize impact to the adjacent residential. So the queuing starts at the north side of the building. That's where the order boards are. And then it proposes looping to the west side of the building where the payment and pickup windows are located, and then comes out the south side. This exhibit shows the separation from the residential property lines to the east. So from the proposed subdivision line of Lot 2, that's this dark line here, there's approximately 260 feet between that and the residential property lines. There's 390 feet between the first vehicular stopping point, that order board, and then the residential property line. And then to the actual building, there's approximately 366 feet. These are the north and west elevations. The west elevation would face Saraville. It includes the solid canopy over the drive-through and then full screening of the drive-through as required by the zoning ordinance text amendment that was adopted back in June. These are the south and east elevations, and I'll just note here that signage is not approved with the approval of a use permit and site plan approval, so what you see on the plans aren't necessarily how the signs would look. Additionally, I will note that signage for the site is subject to city's sign regulations. I have heard some concerns about a monument sign being...
Alex, I don't think we're seeing the elevations.
Okay, just a second.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this was the north and west one. This west side is the one facing Saraville, which has the canopy and then the screen wall. The east side is what would face the residential. And then the south side would be facing Indian School. So the sign regulations, the city's sign code would apply to this property. Some of the concerns that we've heard are about a monument sign that would be visible to the freeway, and I just would like to note that the maximum monument signage allowed on sites like this, any commercial sites, is 8 feet tall. Anything taller would require council and commission approval per a sign package, which is not being proposed tonight. Also, stipulations have been included to address concerns about lighting and sign illumination on the east elevation to prevent light pollution to the residential to the east. Still delayed. Okay. This exhibit is the landscape plan proposed for both McDonald's and the storage proposal that will be included in my next presentation. Just to note, the north is to the right of the screen, so the top is facing the west. The single-family residential is down here, and So there's already a 40-foot drainage easement that cannot be constructed on. So this is that hatched area that is proposed as riprap. And then just west of that, which is just north on this page, is a row of trees to provide additional screening. The evaluation criteria related to the use permit is that the use will not be materially detrimental and that the use is reasonably compatible with uses in the surrounding area. We do find that the property is intended for commercial uses. This is not a rezone or land use change, just an evaluation of the impact of the drive-through, which traffic and queuing is internalized within the site and does not impact any of the adjacent residential. There was a lot of feedback received during the public hearing process, and I know you'll hear more tonight, but staff and the applicant have worked out stipulations that we believe address the residents' concerns. Specific to the convenience use, there are additional evaluation criteria, which is further discussed in your staff report, but at a high level, the size of the proposed parcel is adequate for the proposed use and queuing. There is a request to allow the site to run for 24 hours. Staff has not imposed time restrictions in the past based on the nature of the use, but we did include lighting and noise stipulations that we find appropriate to mitigate overnight impacts to adjacent residential. As far as traffic mitigation, the major off-site improvements are completed. There is one new turn lane proposed off of westbound Indian School to provide the secondary access that I previously discussed. And finally, there were no other concerns related to the inclusion of the drive-through lane for the restaurant. As required by the city's public hearing requirements, the notice requirements included signs posted on the property and postcards sent to property owners within 500 feet of the subject property. Staff and the applicant hosted a neighborhood meeting at the Goodyear Municipal Complex on July 13th. There were approximately 50 residents in attendance. Their concerns specific to McDonald's were related to restaurant odors, increased traffic, noise, lighting, crime, and safety. For the public hearings, I already mentioned the property posting and postcards, but we also did the required legal advertisement. As of today, staff, the applicant, and members of council have received 8 emails objecting to the request, 5 emails in support of the request, and I've received approximately 5 calls objecting and 1 call in support. The commission may also remember that at the September hearing, a resident did speak during the non-agenda item to object to the request as well. Members of the commission, staff has considered this request, along with the concerns brought forth by the residents. And staff finds that with the 12 stipulations included in the staff report, the request is reasonable and we do recommend approval. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions. The applicant is here for a presentation as well and can answer any questions after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions? Yes.
Good evening, Alex. Nice presentation, thank you. I was looking at the drawings and so forth, and there's going to be some landscaping on the east side, although even if there's lots of trees and bushes, there still will be another building possibly.
Now leave your hand off.
When, okay, there we go. When the property is all built out, there's possibly going to be another building over there. So, but the landscaping that you're talking about now, normally it's 1 tree every 20 feet, and I assume some bushes and so forth. But it's 366 feet now from the edge of that residential area. Is that correct?
Vice Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Alex, when was this zone commercial originally?
Mr. Chair, this was zoned in 2003 by that ordinance that I referenced.
So this has been zoned and ready for any restaurant or type of commercial since 2003?
Correct.
What other types of commercial could go here except a restaurant?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The C1 district allows for retail, office, auto leasing. I'm going off the top of my head here, so I might miss some of the list, but typical retail, commercial, allowed other places in the city.
So anything from, say, a restaurant, to a clothing store, to a auto dealership.
That's correct.
Thank you. Is the site next door the same?
The site to the west. This site originally was zoned mixed-use commercial, which applied the C2 general commercial standards. This site, however, had been included in a previous rezone that attached it to the PV 303 development further to the west. So it was, in 2003, it was mixed-use commercial, but since then, we've rezoned it.
The one to the east I was referring to.
Oh, this? to
The
this
smaller
east?
one that's not planned yet.
My mouse caught up.
Or maybe I've got my directions backwards.
So just to the east, my mouse is not catching up, but is a residential district immediately east.
Okay, so it must be west that I'm turning
West
around.
of Saraville it's part of the UPS expansion area.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other questions for staff?
I attempted to go back and research historical Google Maps, and if I'm not mistaken, the homes in that area were already under development with many of them constructed, so that in fact, when this was heard in 2003, some of the residents or owners at that time would have had the opportunity to say something when the commercial was considered. Is that correct?
Thank you, Commissioner Zambito. I'm not familiar with exactly when every lot was built, but if there were homes at that time, it would have been part of the rezone and public hearing process.
And therefore, if they were built after that, the zoning would have been in place and they could have reviewed it then too.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none. Would the applicant like to address?
Good evening, members of the commission. Thank you for your time. My name is Manjula Vaz. I'm a zoning attorney at Gamage and Burnham. I am here today with Darian Mellon, who some of you may know, who's the owner of the McDonald's. I just wanted to show you a couple of pictures from the landscaping to answer the vice chair's question, and I think maybe the chairman's question. Oops, if I can do this right. Maybe I did that wrong. Since Alice did a pretty good presentation, I thought a couple of things may help us as we represent both Sunbelt, McDonald's, and then the storage site. And just to give you a little sense of what we've tried to do, and as the commission has pointed out, it is zoned neighborhood commercial. What we've tried to do is put the storage site on the majority of the site, which we think provided a good buffer, and then, of course, with the noise contour line, so that provides a good buffer against the neighborhood and the industrial, and then I'll get to the McDonald's, and then put the McDonald's closer to the industrial. And as you will see, we also have the McDonald's speakers, which Darian can talk a little bit more about, that are aiming towards the industrial. And they will have state-of-the-art technology recognizing noise level. So just wanted to show that to you, and Darian can talk a little bit more about that. Here's some McDonald's locations we can talk about, and a little bit about, distances and other places and their adjacency to residential in a variety of different locations throughout the valley. And just kind of, we've all been to McDonald's, we know where they're located, but just to give you a sense. But I think this is the two questions that I think the chair or the vice chair asked, and both in terms of our landscaping, and then, I don't know who asked the question, but in terms of the site to our immediate east, which is kind of where you can see that, or west, or no, it's east, to the block building, which I think is your question.
Yes.
That is also zone C1. So
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so that would also be, and maybe this is a better way to see it, but see where it says TBD will also be a future commercial pad of some sort. So it could be a restaurant or some other thing. And, the intent, as you have seen, certainly we've talked about with the development of the freeway and other things, that you have kind of a neighborhood services commercial transition between the neighborhood and the industrial. But with your permission, a couple of minutes, I think Darian wanted to talk a little bit about some of his operations and some of the comments that came out of the neighborhood meeting related to McDonald's and how he operates McDonald's and noise, and if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for the people that are here today. I live here. I live in Goodyear. I live right down the street. I could have walked here today. I live in Portales, so grew up here, moved here in 1980. My parents have always owned all the restaurants in Goodyear. I went to Albert Free High School, won a state championship there in football, coached at Glendale Community College. Today, I'm 100% committed to Goodyear. So when they leave, because these are people that do this for a living, what I do for a living is Goodyear. And every single order that goes out one of my windows or at the table, I put a sticker on it with my phone number, my office number, because I'm committed. I'm committed to this community. This is where I live, and I want you all to be my patrons. And right now, we sponsor 23 of the 29 schools. We gave over $100,000 in community involvement and support to schools, to the YMCA. We helped build the swimming pool there. So I just want everybody to know that it's not McDonald's, it's the Mellon family and it's Darien. And you'll have 100% complete access to me, my staff. My whole staff is from the west side. They all grew up out here. I have 4 operations supervisors that all they do is go around and tend to the restaurants. Then I have a general manager in all of the 8 restaurants. They're certified and trained. They go through a 2-year training program. They go back to Chicago and learn. They're certified in food safety. So when you talk about smells and cleanliness and buildup, it just doesn't happen because we're dealing with certified individuals. They make a lot of money. My staff makes $70,000, $80,000. We're going to employ over 60 people at this location. It's going to be a lot of people's first-time jobs from people in our community. We love to employ senior citizens. So if you know anybody that's retired that wants a low-key job and wants to work part-time for us, I'd love that too. So we're here to build with the community, not take away. People want to know why that location and why did things happen, because there's just demand in Goodyear. Goodyear's growing so fast that the locations I have today have more demand than I can service. And so for me to give better service to the community, I need more locations. It's just simple fact. You guys know at some points there's other resources like hospitals. We get to a point where we're going to need more hospitals because there's going to be a demand for that. We're going to need more retirement communities. We're going to need more schools. And so today, simply, this location for me is that. It's me trying to service the demand that's already here in Goodyear and take care of that customer. When you talk about how else we operate, I have a full-time maintenance staff. This restaurant will have 80 hours a week dedicated nothing except janitorial services, but I have 4 operations people. I have air-conditioned refrigeration, I have electrician, I have somebody that's going through plumbing school, that all they do is service these buildings. So these buildings are going to be serviced at the highest level. And again, my commitment to everybody that's here and everybody that lives in Goodyear, and it's a commitment that I make every day, I'm here to service us, to take care of our community, and not just to benefit us, but to employ the 600 people that I employ in the community, and then after that to give back to our local schools and different philanthropy things that are happening, like the Mavericks and things in the community. So I asked to speak today specifically because I want everybody to know McDonald's is the brand. Darien's a person that you're going to see every day, and I'm committed to being here for the city of Goodyear. And I'm open to questions if
Thank you.
anybody wants.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Just have one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's very nice that you are doing that. I had no idea. And still haven't figured that
There
one
you
out.
go. Just leave it. There you go.
Okay. But it's great to know that you are the face of McDonald's here and not just Ronald. So thank you.
Yeah. I office on Litchfield and McDowell. I run every morning at Lifetime Fitness. I know there were some people concerned about running. I'll run by this restaurant a lot. If you need me, I'm totally available. This is what I do. This is where I live. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? I know there are speaker cards, so I'm sure some people in the audience would like to speak. Alyssa, you want to call them up one by one? And keep in mind you have 3 minutes. And like I said at the beginning, if you start seeing that your point has been made and made well, If you want to add to your point quickly, come on up. If you feel like that person just before you said it really well, you couldn't really add to it, you might just put it on the card, and the city council will also read those items.
I have Nick Sylvester.
Good. How are you, Mr. Sylvester?
Just wanted to go through, thank you for your time, appreciate it. There's a really nice presentation that you made there, Darren. Really appreciate that. But to be honest, you don't live in that portion of the neighborhood. And so if I went through the actual ordinances in the city, they only went through section 1-3 with their two things there. So 1-3-2 of the application. So will not be material or detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity adjacent to the property, to the neighborhood, or to the public welfare. And your question, Commissioner Sambito, was, were the homes built there prior to 2003? They were not. That subdivision was started in 2004. That's when the first homes there were built. The original PV 303 plan called for that to be mixed use. The zoning change for the UPS building, there was no residences within 500 feet of there, so that wasn't changed. There's already noise 24 hours a day from both the Best Buy distribution center and the UPS distribution center and the Boeing distribution center. The original plan called for a fast food restaurant at the corner of Camelback and Saraval. That's where that was called for in the original PV 303, and the rest of it was to be a mixed-use development. So, again, I don't have any, I've lived here since 2007. We have zero, we trust that the zoning commission and that the city council are doing the right things for the city. This is not the right development for right here. One, he can't tell me, they showed you pictures of where the other McDonald's are. Those are all on hard corners, surrounded by developments and restaurants on every other corner. There is not a standalone McDonald's on a soft corner in the entire valley. So we can't oppose the restaurant part, but we can oppose the drive-through part, correct? Okay, so the wind blows directly east from this location. It doesn't matter if you put air scrubbers in, it doesn't matter what happens there, the wind blows to the east, okay? His maintenance crew is gonna come at 5 a.m. to power wash those driveways. The people that live right behind there, that's not the right thing for them or for us. We live within 1,000 feet of this restaurant, okay? McDonald's has no other standalone McDonald's in the entire valley. The city of Goodyear has no fast food restaurants that are not on a major street or did not require a special use permit in order to be built. If they have to go through for a special use permit for an air scrubber and for a light ordinance and for a noise ordinance, then at some point, Alex at the city should have said, stop, this isn't the right place for this development. Please find a different spot. They own plenty of land all the way around there. The city, they're going to ask for a monument sign. She said it's not there yet because it's half a mile. When you get off the freeway there, you can't see that spot. So they're going to want a sign there. I realize that none of you on the council live in this area. So, you know, we understand that wouldn't affect you on a day-to-day basis, but it does affect all of the people that are living there. So obviously I've lost my time, but again, in closing, if you have to have all of these special use permits for this site, then it's probably not a good idea and we shouldn't have made it here. And we've got to go now to the city council for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester. Next up.
Deborah Woodrum.
Hi, my name is Deborah Woodrum. I live directly behind this, directly east. So I'm going to get all that smell. My house was built in 2014. My builder told us it would be a soft corner, tax preparer, you know, small businesses like that, not a huge draw for that whole area to come through and drive through in 24 hours. I didn't even know that. And I'd like to go ahead and give Nick the rest of my time. Oh, okay, you good. So, and I have a 5-year-old granddaughter that loves McDonald's. I've taken her to probably every single one of your businesses. And I have to say, sometimes I'm a little leery when I get there because of a transient type person in the area, especially at the one on Estrella and the one at Litchfield, Indian School and Dysart. And I'm leery when it's just me and a 5-year-old little girl, and you have people hanging around the front that, you just can't be too safe nowadays. As far as my living, we've got a pool in our backyard. I don't want to smell Big Macs. I have an issue with food now. I don't need to smell it when I'm in my backyard trying to swim or enjoy family time. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Blau. I'm with McDonald's. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Woodrum. Oh, and you marked, you do not wish to speak? Okay. I have Jen Sylvester, who also did not wish to speak. Do you wish to speak? Okay. Okay.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
I'm Jen Sylvester. That's my husband back there. And my main point to you guys is I think that you need to not approve the zoning. You already agreed that it's zoned for commercial. He could build a drive-through or build a McDonald's without a drive-through. And I say, okay, but I do not think that you need to accept the zoning for a drive-through. I do have a question for you guys. What drive-through restaurant in the city is within 366 feet of a residential home? Can you guys tell me that? Hi, can you guys tell me that?
I can. You can just drive down Estrella. When you start at Estrella, if you look at Duncan backs to residential.
But is it 360 feet?
Yeah, it backs directly to residential.
But for sure, you can confirm that it's more or
I'm
less?
I'm not here to fight with you. I would just say if you drive down Estrella, you'll see 5 drive-throughs. That's residential.
I just want to make sure that the comments are directed towards us,
Okay,
not towards the crowd.
So my plea is that, like she said, we are homeowners in that facility. We live or in that area right there. And so saying no to this stops the drive-through and allows for another business to come in that is not a drive-through, that we eliminate the smell, the risk of, man, it scares me. It's because like she said, the trafficking and stuff. The kids are going to be out, bikers and stuff. We no longer can walk safely around that area like we take a mile run, because you're now at risk of being hit by cars coming in and out, because not everyone's going to be paying attention. So my plea to you guys is say no to the zoning of allowing for a drive-through. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Matt Casey.
Good evening, Mr. Casey.
I also live in Palm Valley, Phase 5. Just want to reiterate everything that's been said. Not a good idea. I don't know any of you that want to live next door to a McDonald's. Anybody? Can you imagine that? So, you know what we're fighting against. Basically, noise, traffic, smell. Southeast winds are prevailing in that area. Oops, sorry. Blows right into the neighborhood. And that blows the noise and the smell right into our backyards. And I live right there next to that property. So it's not a good thing for the community that I live in. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Robert Garcia.
Thank you for having me up here, Robert Garcia. I'm also I bought my house out in that region, just east of there, actually just east of there, that neighborhood on the Palm Valley Phase 5 area facing the vacant field. When we moved out there, it was because it was a beautiful area. There was nothing out there. We understood there was going to be the economic development going to be based out there, but we weren't really sure what it was going to look like. Then the warehouses showed up. And we figured, well, it's still far enough. It's going to be all right. Then the trucks came. Then the traffic came. Then all of a sudden, not to blame one or the other, but now we got, people's cars getting broken into. You got houses getting broken into. And these things are escalating. They weren't there before. They're there now. I'm not going to say what caused it, but it's just kind of one of those coincidences. I would just say as economic developers, we should be looking at the community itself and making sure that we're making the right fit. There's a lot of space out there for these restaurants. It's not like there's not space there. There is space there. And there's a lot of spaces close to the very vicinity that they're looking at right now that could be zoned for future development where you could put many restaurants there. But that spot where you're going to put it is not the spot for it. I think everybody already told you about the McDonald's, the smell, the cleanliness. I don't think anybody here can look at a McDonald's 10 years down the road and say, yeah, it's still clean, still pretty, still nice. It doesn't work that way. It's going to be used. It's going to be beat up. It's going to be broken at some point. All of them are. It's not like one's exception of the other. But let's just say that where it's at right now, especially right next to that neighborhood, and it does have a smell to it. It may not be a horrible smell. Maybe cheeseburgers and fries, or it may be old meat. We don't know. These are real hypothetical comments that I hear saying that it's going to smell great and everything's going to be nice. Well, until you live next to there, I would say we need to be at, show some caution and compassion, since we're here for the city of Goodyear and for the good of the residents that elect our people here. We should probably take into account what they want. Again, right next door, there's a lot of places. There's a lot north, south of that, actually east, west, south of that area, that right by the church that can be built up as well. There's always places by the 303. They're developing the whole area. So we got lots of options. So it's not like it's a one-all or we lose everything. It's not that kind of situation. So I would just implore you to think, feel, understand what the community is asking, and try to absorb that a little bit, try to consume that, because we're the ones that have to live there even after the place is built. And we'll have no say-so after that to get rid of it. So if it does go south, you guys get to go home and not worry about it. We have to live there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
And I have Fred Cochran.
Thank you. Have 3 points. 2 of them have been covered in July meeting and up here today. One thing I would like to say about the noise. My concern about the noise, first of all, I'm a Goodyear resident that live in Pebble Creek. One thing about the noise is that speaker on the drive-through part. And I've been made aware that there's regulation about the volume on that, not getting into the residential area. And that would probably control the people inside McDonald's taking the order. But what about that customer? And we've all been through, we're familiar with drive-in restaurants. What about that customer that's screaming back into that box to try to get that order? And this is going to be a 24-hour restaurant. Second, the traffic, which has been mentioned. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I drive down there very often. And I've seen those UPS tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, pull out of there in bulk. Also seen I call them the panel delivery truck, because I'm not good on the verbiage, the ones that come to your house to drop off the package. A popular restaurant like McDonald's, with the customers they'll draw, that's just going to make it more dangerous through there. And I did see that they're going to put a pull-off lane off Indian School Road there, but it's just going to be dangerous there. My third point is really a question, and Commissioner, you mentioned a 2003 ruling or something. I don't know how long each of you have been on the panel, but a year and a half or 2 years ago, something very similar to this came up involving a restaurant on Indian School Road that was closer to 303. I mean, it's on down the road from where this location is talking about. Whatever happened to that? It was my understanding that that was passed, okayed, whatever the terminology is. And does that still stand? And whatever happened to that? Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. All right, thank you. That is all the speaker cards. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on a new topic that hasn't been already discussed about the McDonald's? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. I do need to have a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion up here. And through the discussion is how we vet out that motion. So I do need a motion and a second to approve the item number 223000005.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we recommend approval of the request for the use permit for McDonald's, including the considerations and stipulations.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Having no second,
Motion fails for lack of a second.
is there a discussion point on the McDonald's? Go ahead, Commissioner Zambito.
Yeah, before I participate, I did want to have discussion with my fellow commissioners. I did go and attempt to look at the other McDonald's, to speak to the one gentleman's point, even as of last month, where this does happen. From what I could find, this will be the 5th one in the city, and this does happen to be the closest. It's less than 1/10 of a mile away.
Hold on one second, Commissioner.
Sorry. You have to have a motion and second to start discussion. You can actually vote you can have a second and then have discussion and still vote against it. Just because you second it does not prevent you from, denying or
Acting one way or the other.
right. It opens it up for discussion among the commission members.
Thank you.
Therefore, I second.
There we go.
Okay, so I did look at the 4 existing ones. One of them happens to be close to where we live. And I noted and I measured to the best that I could, because I don't have an AutoCAD system at home, but using what I do have available. The one in Australia is about 3/10 as the crow flies from the nearest home. The one on Litchfield is also about 3/10. It's closer to the condos or the apartments, but the first single-family resident is to the east and about that distance. And then there are 2. There's one on Dysart, and then the one on Van Buren by McDonald's there on the south side of the freeway, the other 2 on the south side of the freeway. They're about 2/10. My concern here is that it is even closer than all of the others. Going back to my point the question I asked Alex, there's a wide variety of things that can occur on a commercial site, neighborhood commercial, including a fast food restaurant. The fact that the homes were not built and they all moved in, and it was a possibility, it's incumbent upon the potential resident to find that out. That being said, my concern was seeing the others. I looked at the hours. I don't know what the approvals had on them, but the one on Litchfield and the one in Australia, both have hours 5 to 10. The other 2 that are closest to the freeway have the 24-hour. And this one, it happens to be farther than any of the other 4 from the freeway. So I personally, I don't know if the city has no habit of putting time limits. But if we've got 4 other ones, 2 of them that are farther from the freeway have time restrictions, and the other 2 that are right adjacent to the freeway and in effect visible from the freeway have no time restriction. This one is not visible from the freeway, and I'm not comfortable with, that's the part I'm not comfortable with, is the 24-hour.
So the discussion point would be the 24-hour.
To me, that's my concern. I'm from a perspective, granted, I come from a very different background than probably most of the residents that have spoken. That being a commercial site would have been something I looked at first. That's just because of where I come from. I know some of my fellow commissioners do not have the same background, and so your opinions also matter in that regard.
Thank you. Very good point. Thank you, Commissioner Zambito. Is there any other discussion on the McDonald's drive-through and the time that it is open, or a different point?
Well, as Commissioner Zambito was talking about, when I first moved here, all of that area on the north side of Indian School was farmland. So when the first housing, the building came up, I thought, oh my, there goes the neighborhood. But, you know, that's the way it goes. But, you know, we should really just be talking about the drive-through in this situation. But also, if you look at the whole perspective, you've got a large lot right there to the east that who knows what's going to be there, and that'll probably can block off that McDonald's when that's built, and it will be built. Somebody's going to build something there.
Sometimes, in some cases, they build different restaurants on those same blocks. Commissioner Hamilton, you had a thought.
Yeah, I just want a quick answer. If the drive-through is not approved, they don't build a McDonald's. Is that correct? Or can it be a McDonald's without one?
That would be a question for staff. I've never seen a McDonald's without a drive-through, but that would probably be directed at staff. Alex, or?
We don't build McDonald's without drive-through.
I didn't think that was I've never heard of such a thing, but okay, thank you. So if it, at this point, the public hearing is closed. We're discussing at this point. But, yes, of course, ma'am. Your discussion point would be the drive-through and whether or not the drive-through goes through if there's no McDonald's. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that they'd have a McDonald's without the drive-through.
Thank you.
Is Commissioner Wang on now? I heard a ringing in.
Unfortunately, we've had some technical issues, so we're just going to have to continue on.
As without.
Commissioner Wang.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Booth.
Okay, so my concern is the hours, because we have to look at the, big picture. I totally understand the residents and the reason why you guys are here. 24 hours as compared to being in that location, I just wonder, why do we have to have those hours? Why is it a 24-hour, restaurant? Is it because of the businesses that are off of the, 303? So that's just, to me, it's worrisome.
Thank you, Commissioner. A question that was, so I guess to stem off this point of hours, I have a question for staff. Is there different restaurants with different hours applicable in different areas in this situation where they're closer to freeway or not? Is there a rule about that?
Chairman, Commissioners, the McDonald's that Commissioner Zambito has referenced, typically, as I mentioned, we don't impose the hours unless there's a specific reason. The McDonald's that you referenced, we would have to do the research on what the approval of the use permit applied to it, but those might have been the hours that McDonald's chose to be open. So I don't have that information in front of me right now, but I can get it back to you. But it would be at the discretion of McDonald's to change those hours.
And Mr. Chairman, Commission members, just to add on to Alex, what Alex just said, we have not imposed, as far as I can remember, several years, we have not imposed any restrictions on hours of operation. We generally leave that to the operator to determine what's best for them. Then we evaluate that in our review, as Alex just did with this case. However, I don't know if Sarah, from a legal perspective, was going to mention it. That is always something that we can always consider further as the commission evaluates this request, if that's something you want to so put forward.
So I would just like to add that if that is a consideration and you think restricting hours would make this eliminate some of the detrimental effects you might see if it was operating 24 hours, that could be a stipulation as a requirement of the use permit. And if that was what you were desiring, then you need to move to amend your existing motion to approve, to move to amend it to approve with the addition of a stipulation with some kind of hour limitation, if that's what you were looking at. But that is within your purview.
Thank you. Thank you from the legal team as well. And also for you guys, we realize this isn't the last step in the process. Please realize that. We are an advisory council, we're an advisory commission. We do not, it doesn't end with us. And many times city council says, takes in what we've said and sometimes does what we request and sometimes they don't. So this is only advisory. By no means the last step. The last step will be at city council, like I said, on October 24th. Show up, the exact same discussion points. They're going to have the same kind of ideas. They're going to be talking about the drive-through. Okay? So if you want to have some discussion about adding a stipulation, I think we could have that discussion now. Is that correct from the legal team?
Yeah, you would move to amend your motion to approve, to move to amend it to approve with, like, limiting hours between X and X.
Okay. So, is that something that we would like to do as a commission? To change the hours of operation or have a stipulation for hours of operation? Knowing full well that the city council may not adhere to that.
Would the hours of operation extend to deliveries as well, or is that something that could happen at the 24-hour?
So your hours of operation would be just to limit the hours of operation for the entire restaurant within whatever hours you picked.
So that would include, they would receive deliveries after, if it was 5 to 10, they would receive deliveries after or before closing at 10?
Yes.
And I don't know if this is within acceptable, because there's another item associated with this site as well, and the hours on that one are 6 to 10 that they're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem too far off for me to have it either 6 to 10 or 5 to 10. I would be much more comfortable. And then if I were living there and I had purchased the lot, I would have done so knowing that it was commercial and this was a potential risk. But knowing that people could be delivering at 2 o'clock in the morning with a huge semi-truck, that to me would be something that would definitely bother me. So.
Is there another point from the legal team? Okay. Commissioner Hamilton, do you have anything to say about the hours of operation?
I think we're moving in the right direction.
Okay. Commissioner Clymer? Vice Commissioner?
Well, I think it's up to the owner of the facility what they want to do. That's their business. So.
Okay. Commissioner Booth? Okay. Feeling like there is is Commissioner Wang? Commissioner Wang is not on. Okay. So feeling like there is I feel like we should put this to a vote, considering that there is some differences of opinion.
So if you want to consider approving it, you could do your first motion to amend the existing with the hours of operation,
Okay, so.
if that's what you want to vote on.
I would like to amend our current motion to add a stipulation of hours from, do we have an hours? Is it,
I would suggest the 5 to 10.
The 5 to
consistent with
10.
The other two that I found like that, but you could also consider the other part of the site is 6 to 10. I think that would be more restrictive for someone who's serving breakfast, though.
okay, so from 5 to 10 would be the hour stipulation. I do need a motion and a second to move forward with the item number with the stipulation. I have a motion by Commissioner Zambito and a second by Commissioner Booth. Please enter your voting.
Motion passes.
Okay. So, moving forward, the hours are going to go up to the city council, and they are going to decide whether or not that the McDonald's should have the hours stipulated by us, whether they,
So I had a motion and a second, and we voted to amend the motion, so now I just need a.
yes,
And I still have a motion and a second, so now I just need a vote on the actual use.
thank you. So we need a vote on the drive-through itself.
Motion failed.
Motion fails. So, now I will say, no, it did pass. Is there a new,
I thought the new way was the majority.
It passed.
3-2 is a pass. So as of right now, we did pass, and the city council will determine whether or not to either do anything we say tonight. Whether to have the drive-through and with stipulations, or whether to have the drive-through with zero stipulations.
Mr. Chair, can you please explain for the audience why it reflects as a failure up there?
I think there's a previous rule that needed 4 votes yes. We actually changed that to have a majority rule of 3-2 that would pass. And that was in, what meeting was that? Was this either last meeting or the meeting before?
You do the code amendment?
It was probably last month's meeting, I'm thinking.
So in effect, yeah.
The software
so in
just
effect,
wasn't
the
updated.
software's out of date.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Agenda item number 3 is for a special use permit for self-storage in Palm Valley Phase 5, and I will open the public hearing. Folks, if we're trying to move on to the next item number, please take conversation into the hallway. Alex, you may present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My second item is related to the McDonald's just north of the site. So as I mentioned, approximately 0.6 miles from the 303 at the northeast corner of Saraville and Indian School, or technically this one is on the southeast corner of Saraville and Charles. Moving in a little bit closer, The McDonald's was just on the southwest corner of the vacant parcel. The proposed storage is on the north half of this vacant parcel, just adjacent to Palm Valley Phase 5 residential. As I mentioned previously, it's part of the Palm Valley Phase 5 PAD that was adopted in 2003, included a mix of uses. That entire vacant parcel, just to clarify my comments earlier, that entire area was the neighborhood commercial designation, which applies the C1 zoning development standards. Mini storage and recreational vehicle storage facilities may be considered in commercial districts, subject to the approval of a special use permit. The proposed acreage of that parcel for the storage is 6.5 acres. It consists of 5 one-story storage buildings, 1 two-story storage building, and covered RV parking, which includes 939 individual storage units ranging in sizes and 66 covered RV spaces. Ingress and egress to the site is off Saraville Avenue. That's entry and exit. And then a secondary emergency access is off on the north side, connecting to Charles. That is for exit only and for emergency access, where a Knox box would be located for emergency services. Just as far as separation goes, there's a 40-foot drainage easement that runs between the two sites, which we discussed previously. That riprap would be there. From the actual building, there's approximately 49 feet. It's a little bit angled, so down here it gets to about 45 feet. To the RV spaces, there's approximately 106 feet from those parking spaces to the residential property boundary. And then to the actual two-story building that's encompassed around the single-story buildings is a 103-foot separation. Just a second. Okay. These are the north and south elevations. The north side would be facing Charles. The south side would be facing the proposed McDonald's and then the future Lot 3 development. The east and west elevations, the west side faces Saraville Avenue. It has the office component at the entrance. And then the east side is facing the back side of the residential. And then it also, like I said in the last presentation, includes that tree buffering on the west side of the drainage canal. The special use permit evaluation criteria, this is going to be in a couple slides, but will be desirable or necessary to the public convenience or welfare, harmonious and compatible with other uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the selected site, is in conformance with the adopted general plan and any adopted area plans. All of this evaluation criteria I did include in the staff report. Just one thing to note, especially on the north half of this property, you can see this dashed line is the Luke compatibility land use area, which does restrict uses within that vicinity. It is adjacent to it is within the flight path of Luke Air Force Base. So the agreements and plans in place is to include lower volume uses, so a storage site isn't as occupied as a McDonald's or other retail components. So it does make sense to move the storage on this north half of the site. And then those other criteria will not be detrimental to surrounding properties or persons in the area due to circulation, noise, light, height, hours of operation, parcel size, and character and architecture of adjacent properties, and then any other concerns which may place the advisability of the proposed convenience use in question. This project, we did move along concurrently with the McDonald's. The notices for both projects went out, like I mentioned with the postcards. It was a combined neighborhood meeting, the July 13th neighborhood meeting, that had about 50 attendees. I carried this information over from the McDonald's site, so restaurant odors is not necessarily applicable to the storage site. So the majority of the comments we heard were related to the McDonald's. There were concerns brought up to the storage related to lighting, noise, and then increased traffic. As I mentioned, we did the proper postings for the public hearings. As I mentioned, some emails with concerns to staff, council, and the applicant. And we did receive a few calls of concerns, but like I mentioned, mostly related to McDonald's. And then those concerns related to the storage were related to lighting, and then the RV parking lighting. We do have stipulations, and the zoning ordinance typically covers lighting that addresses light pollution towards residential developments, but we just kind of enhance those a little bit more in the stipulations. Therefore, the stipulations and the staff report include the staff's recommendation of approval. That concludes my presentation. The applicant has a separate presentation if you'd like to hear or ask any questions, but I can answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Does the applicant like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, again, for your record, Manjula Vaz with Gamage and Burnham 2 North Central. I won't, Ariel's here to answer some questions if you have any about the dimensions. I won't really belabor anything. I do want to talk to you a little bit about what we've tried to do, as we talked about, and Ariel talked about, is put one story adjacent to the neighbors. If this was residential, it could be 2 stories, so try to have the perimeter be 1 story, you have a 2-story building in the middle, and to try to be very, we think this is a nice transition buffer for them, as you have said, low limit, kind of, low use. I know we talked a little bit during our neighborhood meeting about some of them can't have RV parking in their houses, so this allows some places for RV parking. We think this will be a nice neighborhood service, and then works within the loop compatibility zone. So again, it's obviously we have limited hours, as you've all discussed. So we're happy to answer any questions. Just wanted to make that mention, because we did talk a little bit of just about what the heights were during our neighborhood meeting, to the extent it came up.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to add, my name is Ariel Valley Architectural Group. I've had a good fortune over 39 years to design about 520 of these storage facilities that have been built throughout the western U.S. And there's 2 types, ones that are adjacent to residential and ones that are not. And whenever we are adjacent to residential, we always try to make sure we have adequate buffers in terms of landscaping and distances from the residences. We always have the lighting, which is always baffled and is dimmed in the evenings, but most importantly, storage is a different use than fast food, so it doesn't need late night hours of operation. So we're very happy with limiting the hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., which seems to make everybody happy. Again, the building heights are 26-foot maximum at the 2-story, which is, 106 feet from the residences, so I believe that this will fit in nicely with the community. There's a very similar one right down the street that I did myself about 3 or 4 years ago. It's done very well. Developer loves this area, and he'd like to do another one. So,
thank you so much.
We ask you for your approval. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay. Are there any speaker cards on this?
Yes. Nick Sylvester?
Guys, thanks again. Just wanted to go back again to the actual city ordinances of this, right? Which is 1-3-5G, which is the proposed development complies with all provisions of this ordinance and all other ordinances, master plans, general plans, goals, objectives, and standards of the city of Goodyear. The proposed development does not have any detrimental effect upon the general health, welfare, safety, and convenience of persons residing or working in the neighborhood and shall not be detrimental or injurious to the citizens of the neighborhood. The general so that's what the ordinance calls for, right? Which is essentially what we're voting on. The proposed development promotes a desirable relationship of structures to one another, to open spaces, and to topography both on the site and the surrounding neighborhood. So we're past that. But a self-storage facility does not fit in with the aesthetic of the neighborhood, which is all single-level homes. In the city of Goodyear, there's only 2. I've done my research here. Okay, so on Charles Boulevard, that goes back here. That goes all back behind residences. So UPS cannot, those trucks cannot, there's an arterial that was built up there to alleviate that. So there's no big trucks here. There's going to be people coming in to bring their RV back at 6 a.m. or at 10 p.m. And we're going to have that along with the other traffic from the pads there. But they're all, the other two self-storage facilities that you approved on Dysart and Indian School and on Camelback and Indian School, those back to residences, and those are single level only with no RV parking. So there are no other RV parking self-storage facilities in the city of Goodyear that back to a residence. There are no other self-storage facilities in the city of Goodyear with RV parking that are more than one story. None of the other, they're all single level. There's not a second story at CubeSmart or at the other self-storage on Camelback and Indian School. So why would this one be allowed to have a second story that is going to, whether or not these trees, they're going to take 15 to 20 years to grow up to be where they're going to be able to block any of this development. We all know that. They're 10-year-old trees, and yeah, maybe they grow fast, but they're going to grow, it's going to take that long for us to be there. So again, the city ordinances call for this to be, in order to have these things, the proposed development does not have any detrimental effect upon the general health, welfare, safety, and conveniences of persons residing or working in the neighborhood and shall not be detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood. That's the bottom line of what 1-3-5G of the actual city ordinances say. And so are we actually taking into when we're making these decisions, taking into consideration the convenience and persons residing or working in the neighborhood or not? Are we following the city ordinances? And these developments are not. They're not. They're asking for 15 feet for the RVs, which again he said have to be baffled. That means there's going to be lights on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because RVs, I have a friend who had one stolen out of the RV storage. So they have to be lit so that the cameras can roll so that they can catch someone not doing that. Max 30 feet at office along Saraval. I mean, the houses here, this is all a single level development. There's no two-story houses there. The closest two-story is the apartment complex a mile away. And Dollar Self-Storage built on the other side of the 303 2 years ago. If they want to expand, buy the land from Tex Earnhardt next to them and expand over there. They had the opportunity to do that, to put RV parking over there. So again, I personally, I'm not opposed to development. Development is great. We in the city, we're going to have that. But the general plan that was called for in 2003, and when I bought my house in 2011, called for mixed-use commercial development all the way along there. The UPS warehouse was more than 500 feet away, so they didn't have to go to any of the residents and say, by the way, we want to build a UPS here that's going to have semi-trucks going 24 hours a day, and we're going to end up like, your neighborhood's going to end up like Tolleson. And the Best Buy that has green lights flashing 24 hours a day. And whatever other thing you guys are going to approve that's in between the neighborhood and there. But that all called for mixed-use commercial development. That's what it called for. That was part of the original plan. So, and this called for, and if you look on the PV 303 and the rest of that, I'm sorry, I'm taking up my wife's time, called for a mix of offices right there. That's what that pad was developed for offices, not for drive-throughs. And if they get one drive-through here, the other pad that's even closer to those people's houses, they're going to ask for a drive-through too.
Okay, sir. Is there anything else?
I don't know how we go have a discussion of a back and forth. And again, we understand that you guys don't live close to there, so it and you're trying to do the right thing for the city.
Right.
But the right thing for the city is the people that actually live in the city, and we live there. You guys live here too, but you don't have UPS trucks going past your house 24 hours a day. Thank you.
Ariel Valley? Okay, all right. And I have a speaker card that did not have a name. Anyone wish to speak?
Would anybody else like to speak? Okay. Thank you. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion and a second, and then some discussion if needed? I have a motion from Commissioner Zambito and a second from Commissioner Booth. Is there any discussion?
My motion? I'm moving. So we're going to discuss and then we'll decide what we're moving. I guess my primary thought was the RV area, and I'm comfortable that the buildings surrounding it, which are the lower buildings, the one-story, effectively screen the RV area.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm moving, and we're having discussion like we did on the previous one.
You have to vote on it first.
Yeah, I have to have a
It didn't
motion.
come up yet, and we voted last time after whether we approved or denied.
So, as of right now, we have to have a motion and then a second to approve, and then we discuss, and then we have to determine if, through that discussion, to change.
I think is where we are. Okay. Yeah. I'm just ready to discuss at this point, right?
Mhm.
And I think from my perspective, the single-story buildings effectively screen the RVs, which I think would be the most detracting as far as the visual effect of the property. I think this is still an improvement over the area that's to the west of Pebble Creek where they have the RVs parked. You can drive by there and see them as you drive by. This, you will not see them because it's effectively screened by a building as well as setback. I don't have a concern with this. I think it's going to be a fairly quiet use.
Okay.
And the hours, I appreciate the fact that they're proposing their own hours of 6 to 10. I mean, I've known many people that use the storage buildings. Most people rarely visit their site. There may be a few that go back and forth, but most people rarely visit them. So as far as traffic goes, I feel there will be significantly less traffic.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. With that, I have a motion to approve the item number 223500002. I have a second. Please put in your vote.
Motion passes.
Agenda item number 4 is the pad amendment for Ballpark Village. And I'll open the public hearing. Assistant Planner Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez will be presenting. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission members, Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez.
I believe your mic, is it? That's always on. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission members, Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez, Assistant Planner. The request before you this evening is to consider a staff-initiated planned area development amendment for the Ballpark Village and Ballpark Village South, second restated and amended final PAD. This is actually the second staff-initiated PAD amendment for the Ballpark Village PAD. I will briefly mention the first staff-initiated PAD amendment that occurred last year later in my presentation. The Ballpark Village and Ballpark Village South PAD areas are located south of Yuma Road and east of Estrella Parkway, as shown by the yellow boundary here on the map on the screen. The PAD areas include the Goodyear Ballpark, the Cleveland Guardians and Cincinnati Red development complexes, and the areas surrounding these developments. The current PAD area is approximately 268 acres. The staff-initiated PAD amendment proposes two things. The first is to add approximately 16 acres located at the southwest corner of Lower Buckeye Parkway and Bullard Avenue to the Ballpark Village and Ballpark Village South PAD. And the second, to rezone the 16 acres. The subject property is highlighted in yellow on the screen. The property is currently part of the City Air Park PAD, approved in 2007, and has an underlying I-1 light industrial rezoning. I-1 light industrial underlying zoning. The land use map on the screen is from the City Air Park PAD, and called out in red is the subject property. Understanding the incompatibility of the I-1 light industrial zoning with the ballpark and the surrounding areas, the property owner authorized the staff-initiated PAD amendment. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the second PAD amendment the staff initiated for the Ballpark Village and Ballpark Village South PAD. The property on the screen west of the subject property in question tonight was rezoned from the City Air Park PAD underlying C2 general commercial and I-1 light industrial to the Ballpark Village Res MXD underlying zoning. Staff is proposing that the property is rezoned from I-1 light industrial to the Ballpark Village PAD existing Res MXD category. The existing Res MXD category allows residential uses, commercial uses, and a mix of residential and commercial uses. The property will follow the existing development standards for this zoning category within the PAD. The PAD amendment meets the zoning ordinance criteria for rezones. The city's citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. Notices were mailed to property owners within 500 feet of the entire PAD boundary area. One resident inquired about the amendment, asked about the possibility of multifamily being built on the property, and expressed concern with the urban heat island effect in the area. No other inquiries or concerns were expressed. Staff has evaluated the impact of this proposed zoning to the greater community. With no major concerns being found, staff asks that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval to add approximately 16 acres to the Ballpark Village and Ballpark Village South PAD and to rezone the approximate 16 acres to the Res MXD zoning designation within the PAD, subject to stipulations. Mr. Chairman and Commission members, this concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions you may have. Ed Bull, representing the property owner, is in attendance and can answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff at this time? Would the applicant like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission. Ed Bull, 1850 North Central. I agree with every word that she just said. We're good with the recommendation. If you're good with it, I'll sit down. If you want a presentation, I'll be happy to provide it, but we're good.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards on this topic? And anyone else in the audience like to speak on this topic? Okay. With that, I am going to close the public hearing. May I have a motion and a second to approve item number 2220000015. I have a motion by Commissioner Booth to approve and a second by Vice Chairman Clymer to approve. Please enter your votes.
Motion passes.
Agenda item number 5 is a use permit for Roll 'em Up Taquitos. Now open up the public hearing. Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez will present.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez, Assistant Planner. This use permit request before you tonight is for a convenience use for a drive-through restaurant, Roll 'em Up Taquitos. This use permit request was submitted to the city before the new drive-through restaurant standards were approved by City Council this summer. The subject property is located at the northwest corner of Pebble Creek Parkway and McDowell Road within the Cobblestone Creek Commercial Center. The property is zoned planned area development and has a C2 general commercial underlying zoning. The property is within the Palm Valley Phase 8 PAD zoning approved in 2005. The subject property is approximately 1.5 acres. As I mentioned, the subject property is located within the Cobblestone Creek Commercial Center. It is east of the Palm Valley Phase 8 neighborhood, west of the AAA Automobile Center and Walgreens, and south of Firestone. Customers will have access to the property from McDowell Road and Pebble Creek Parkway, and this access drives are shown on the screen by the yellow arrows. On this slide is the site plan for Roll 'em Up Taquitos. The proposed building is approximately 2,000 square feet. The restaurant will have indoor and outdoor dining. The restaurant proposes an outdoor covered patio. All off-site improvements, including parking, is completed. The developer will only be constructing the restaurant building. The drive-through will have space for 8 cars to queue before the menu board and space for 5 cars to queue between the order point and the pickup window. The queuing provided meets the city requirements. On this site plan, you can see the customers will have access to the property from McDowell. This access drive right here is actually a right-in, right-out access, and this one directly south of the subject property is a full access drive. There is a traffic signal at this location. However, the traffic signal facing the property is currently inactive and will be activated as new development comes in. Customers will enter the drive-through north of the property, place their orders along the drive-through, and exit the drive-through going south on the property. On this slide are the building elevations. These elevations include colors and materials consistent with those approved for the Cobblestone Creek Commercial Center design guidelines. This next slide shows the existing and proposed landscape plan. The developer is landscaping the drive-through lane and adding trees west of the proposed location for the menu board and speakers location, where my mouse is. Sorry if you might not be able to see that, but is right east of the 4th tree west of the drive-through. The proposed project meets the city's use permit and convenience use evaluation criteria. Staff considers that the use permit will not be detrimental to surrounding areas. The use is to be located at an existing commercial center. The infrastructure is existing, and there are similar uses existing in the center. The Palm Valley Phase 8 neighborhood is approximately 245 feet west of the subject property. The near residential homes are separated from the proposed restaurant with an approximate 100-foot canal. This is the Roosevelt Irrigation Canal, and there's also a linear park owned and maintained by the city of Goodyear that separates the subject property from residents in Palm Valley Phase 8. Given the existing and proposed landscape buffer separation between the property and the residential neighborhood, staff believes that there will be no adverse effects to the operations of the proposed use on the residential properties. The drive-through restaurant is compatible with the surrounding properties. Traffic and queuing have been internalized within the site. Queuing for the drive-through use meets the city standards. The proposed hours of operation will be from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. Friday and Saturday. Given the proposed location within a development commercial center and the landscape and canal buffer between the subject property and the residential neighborhood to the west, staff does not recommend any restrictions on hours of operation. The city's citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. A neighborhood meeting was held on September 15th. There was no resident attendance at the meeting. All planning and engineering requirements are met. Staff has not received public opposition to the project to date. Staff, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, recommends approval of the use permit subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. Carlos Lujan and Will Willington, representing the property owner, are in attendance, and they can answer any questions, and I can as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I had one. Can you pull up the overhead from above, looking at the property? The picture of the overhead. One more. That one. Is there, next to that Walgreens, is that where a coffee shop is going to be going?
There is a coffee shop currently in construction north of the Walgreens. That is correct.
Okay, so there's no concern over the traffic in and out of that location. I can see that there's a buffer with the AAA. And I know that there's a McDonald's on Estrella and Dutch Brothers that share kind of a similar thing. I just didn't know if there was discussion with staff on how much two revolving, very busy areas would be with the drive-throughs.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. Part of the use permit requirements and site plan requirements is a traffic study, or traffic engineer with the city did review the traffic study and did not see any concerns and did approve the traffic study.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. I'm William Whittington with Avalon Development. Just open to any questions. It sounds like you guys don't have any, though. But if you do, I'm here to address.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any speaker cards? With that, I will close the public hearing. And I will take a motion to approve the use permit for Roll 'em Up Taquitos and a second. I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sambito and a second by Vice Chairman Clymer. Please put in your votes.
Motion passes.
Agenda item 6, the rezone at Citrus and Lower Buckeye Road. I'll open the public hearing. Principal Planner Christian Williams will present.
Good evening, Commissioner Kish and Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm the only thing standing between you all and your dinner, so I'll try to be efficient. Sorry it took me so long. I had to come from all the way around over there. I'm here before you this evening, though, with a request from Brennan Ray to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. That property is located in central Goodyear. It is approximately 198.57 acres, and it is located in an area of the city we like to call West Goodyear, which is west, effectively, of Cotton Lane. It's located at the northeast corner of Lower Buckeye Road and Citrus Road, and in the general plan, the underlying land use designation for it is neighborhoods. The property is currently zoned La Jolla Vista Amended PAD with an underlying zoning of residential uses, and the overall property is located in this fun Tetris-shaped square right here with a star on it. don't have a better way to describe the shape. So zooming in a little closer, you can see that the property is south of Durango Street, which is a county roadway, and a county island with homes. That development's called Sweetwater Estates, and it's zoned RU43, which is the equivalent of an AU designation if it were in the city of Goodyear, which it is not. Also, it is south of Cottonflower Subdivision, which is zoned PAD. It is north of Lower Buckeye Road and vacant neighborhood commercial, C2 lands. It is also north of a vacant Agua Fria Union High School District site, which has an underlying zoning of R16. And vacant The Artesian at West Goodyear, you might have remembered it called Cotton Commons. That's an MF24 and an MF12 property zoning. It's also west of Cottonflower, because Cottonflower kind of wraps around it, and Sin Lomas to the direct east of it. West of this property is Citrus Road and Pradera, which is under development, and that underlying zoning there is R16 and R14. For a quick zoning history on the property, in 2005, the property was zoned La Jolla Vista PAD, called for 60 by 120 lots, 70 by 125 lots, and 2 court home parcels with attached or detached single-family homes around a common motor court, with the minimum lot size of 2,000 square feet, as well as an elementary school over in this zone of the city, or of the PAD. 2016, there was an amendment. I apologize, my staff report says 2006. It was 2016. There was a PAD amendment which changed the land use designations for those 2 lower parcels, parcels 4 and 6, to 50 by 120s with 6,000 square foot lot minimums. And during that case, there were some resident concerns to the north in the county island that they did not want access, vehicular or pedestrian, to their county road. So the applicant came back in 2017, requested an amendment which would restrict vehicular and pedestrian traffic from this development onto Durango Street, with the exception of an RID or well-like facility which might have maintenance access from Durango Street. And again, today's proposal is to rezone the property to 2 different zoning districts with a mix of R14 and R16 lots. The stipulation about Durango Street is included within this zoning, so it would still restrict pedestrian or vehicular access to Durango Street. And I'll talk more about the details on the next slide. Again, applicant wants to rezone this to La Jolla Vista at West Goodyear. 104.8 acres of R14 with R14 reduced development standards, approximately 93.6 acres zone R16 with R16 reduced development standards, all with the PAD overlay to address amenities, connectivity that create a large master plan development. Highlight a few of those modifications with the R14. That would include that the R14 minimum lot should be upgraded to 45 feet with a minimum depth of 115. Typically R14 reduced is 40 with 100. They're requesting 45 by 115. Within R16, they are requesting a minimum lot of 50 feet for at least 35% of the lots, at least 50-foot wide minimums with 115 depth. 45% of the lots, they're requesting 55-foot wide by 120-foot wide depth, and 5% of the lots being 60-foot wide with a 120-foot wide depth. Additionally, all residential lots proposed on the northern boundary of the property shall be that big lot, the 60-foot wide lot. So let's discuss some additional details of the PAD overlay. For amenities, they are requesting or proposing an 8.3 acre centralized park with amenities located right in the center of the community. That graphic on the left is a larger view of that 8.3 acre park. On the left, you'll see a little bit zoomed into that core area of the park. And you notice that red line there, that's kind of the boundary phase. So approximately 5 acres of it would come in with the first half of the development, and the remainder 3 acres would come in with the second phase of that. The core being the pool and those amenities, those would be located in the first phase. So they need to be open, ready to go by the time we have the first residents move in. Those amenities, to highlight a couple of them, would be a splash pad, restroom facilities. I'm getting hungry. Restroom facilities, 2 pickleball courts, resort-style pool with at least 1 lap lane, gas fire pits, gaming lawns, cornhole, bocce board, bocce ball, ramadas with shade, barbecue, decorative split rail fencing, that agrarian theme located around that park, and then a tot lot and some open turf areas. Highlighted a few, there's many more, but want to be brief here. So let's talk about connectivity and also streetscape. This infill development will construct along Citrus Road, which is right here. There will construct either 2 5-foot wide DG trails with so one way in one direction, one way in the other, or one 10-foot wide DG trail. That's that horse trail that you've been hearing about as it goes down Citrus. This is the continuation of that, so that residents, again, if you recall Las Palmas, can take their horsies and giddy up all the way down to here. So also they will be counted for lot diversity because 78% of the lots proposed in here will exceed the minimum requirement. Perimeter walls around the property will be constructed only along the rears of lots. With the exception of Citrus Road, they will include picket fencing down the rear of all those lots to add to that agrarian theme. You can see examples of that picket fencing here. For streetscape, they will incorporate the West Goodyear theming. They will have at minimum 3 regional monument signs welcoming you to West Goodyear at those corners, as well as having picket fencing, enhanced entries, typical of the West Goodyear developments to make this feel like a cohesive master plan community amongst the neighborhoods here. They will also need to pick from 3 additional streetscape elements. At this point in the preliminary plat process, which will come before you in future, no, it won't come before you in future meetings, but what they're proposing is detached sidewalks, paver driveways on the front of all the homes, and with trees in between the sidewalks and the curbing, and enhanced entries off of Lower Buckeye Road and Citrus Road. To date, the city has not received any formal opposition from residents, just general inquiries. At the neighborhood meeting, residents largely had questions concerning traffic, traffic signals, and existing cut-through traffic. Those concerns largely came from the residential properties to the north within the county. And staff has evaluated the impacts of this proposed zoning with the greater community. With no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone the property from amended final planned area development to R14 and R16 as listed with the PAD overlay subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. This would also include the restriction that was codified in 2017 to restrict any vehicular or pedestrian access from this neighborhood into the County Road Durango. Of note, this development will build half-street improvements on the north side of Lower Buckeye that will be 2 lanes westbound, which ultimately, when you add the south half, will make that a minor arterial, 2 lanes in each direction. They will build half-street improvements on 173rd Avenue here on this west side so that there's a lanes and median. They will build their half-street improvements on Citrus Road. That is the 2 northbound lanes from Lower Buckeye Road up to Durango Street. They will also pay 25% of a signal at 173rd Avenue and Lower Buckeye. That's kind of the entrance to El Cedro. They will pay for 50% of a signal to be located at 175th and Lower Buckeye Road. That ultimately will get you down to the proposed high school there. 25% of the signal at Citrus Road and Lower Buckeye. 50% of a signal at Watkins Parkway or Road at Citrus Road. And they will pay into quarter of the signal that would be built at Durango Street and Citrus Road. They will also dedicate 12.5 acres of land to the Avondale Elementary School District for a future elementary school, unless the school district says otherwise. The applicant is here. They do not have a presentation, and I'm happy to answer any zoning-related questions you might have.
Thank you, Christian. Are there any questions for staff? Awesome job.
One question. You talked about those famous picket fences. You've talked about the agrarian thing. What are those fences made of, you know?
They have options, but currently it's either proposed wooden or vinyl type. That's what it looks like it's proposed like today. There's not a specific requirement they have to do, but they have to go in concert with this theme here.
Yeah, I don't know
and
what
they
kind
would be HOA maintained.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what kind of wood will last very long out there, but they got some new plastic stuff that's really good. But okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Christian. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Brendan Ray, 1850 North Central, here on behalf of the applicant. I will take a page from my partner Ed Bull's book. We agree with everything that staff said. Christian was very thorough in his presentation and his staff report, and we've worked closely with him. We've worked closely with legal on this case. As you know, there is a number of infrastructure agreements that we're working to take care of, but with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have, and if it's appropriate, I believe there may be some neighbors that wish to speak, and if it's appropriate for me to stand up after they speak, I'd like that opportunity, but we'll defer to you, Chair, and members of the Commission.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay. So there are speaker cards.
I've not received any.
Are there any speakers that'd like to talk on this subject? Yes, sir? Please fill out a speaker card.
Ken Bradley, live in the neighborhood just north. My question is, single-story homes along Durango or two-story? That's my question. That's my question.
Thank you, sir. Christian will be happy to answer that question for us. Thank you.
So this zoning would not restrict single or double two-story. An R14 or an R16 would allow homes up to 30 feet in height. That's similar to Cotton Flower, that's adjacent to here, as well as San Lomas. I do want to tell you about the distance. As you'll see, Durango Street is here. So these lots, as you'll recall, are a little bit deeper than most. The minimum setback for those R16 lots would be 20 feet. Behind the wall of those homes, you'd have at least 10 feet of landscape strip that would be maintained by that HOA. North of that, there's about 25 feet of land that is within the county that is not Durango Street itself. The Durango Street right-of-way is about 57 feet. And then I did measure some of the yards of the homes across the street. Some of them their front yards are about 40 feet back. So in totality, if there is a one-story or two-story home in this development, it'd be approximately 152 feet from a residential structure in Sweetwater Estates or 112 feet from the property.
Christian, is that pretty typical across that much feet across two residential? And is that more than typical?
It's pretty substantial when you're talking about 152 feet. For example, this neighborhood's interface with Cotton Flower is 40 feet. The interface of this neighborhood to the east San Lomas is probably 80 to 100 feet.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Does that answer your question, sir? Or do you have more to add?
No, it does answer my question, but more to add. When we went through this process several years ago, it was going to be single-story along that whole road, along Durango. And now it's changed a little bit. And I happen to live, you measured where I live because you were there. I'm not a fan of two-story homes. So that's my point.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you can come up and speak. Just fill out a...
My name's Art West, and I own the property on Citrus and Durango on the northwest side of Citrus. And when they built the development on the south side of Durango, we had them build single-story homes as a buffer. And it needs to be a single-story home built on the north side of this property that's adjacent to Durango. And also, the fences need to be compatible to what they built over there at the Padre development, or whatever that development was. And that's a block wall, something that'll be substantial and will be there 5 or 10 years or 15 years from now. I know what wood does, you know what wood does, we know what plastic does. We know what this vinyl fencing does. And we have horses, they're not horses, they're horses. We have livestock. And we understand there's gonna be development, but we expect the development to work with the homeowners that's already there. We've been there, I've been there since '80. These people have been there probably longer than that. You need to follow what we've already gone through. We've gone through for We spent 3 years discussing the development just south of my property on Durango. And they did build single-story homes in the end, and they did put a good block wall up there. Do what you want to do on Citrus, do what you want to do on Lower Buckeye, but you're going up to existing homes and existing families that's been there for years. And the least the city of Goodyear can do, we don't want to be in Goodyear, we're happy being in the county. But least Goodyear can do is respect us, respect what we've done, respect what we've been there for 20, 30, 40 years, and put a good block wall up there. We don't want to see your property, we don't want anything to do with it. And I know you're building a lot of homes that are 10 homes to the acre nowadays, which you know what that's going to be a few years from now. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing any of us can do about that. But please respect the people that's been there for years. And at least get them a good block wall up there, and at least make sure that those homes are single story, so you don't have people looking down. I don't care what the average is around the rest of the country. I could care less. We've been there for years. Please respect the people that have been there for years, and we live in the county. We want to stay in the county. But Goodyear should respect what our wishes are. This is early in the process. There's no reason in the world why they can't put single stories of homes along there. None whatsoever. If anybody has any questions, you can get with me later. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I'll fill out a card.
Please, thank you. Are there any other speakers in the audience? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. And may I have a motion and a second so that we can have some discussion? I have a motion to approve by Vice Chairman Clymer. And I have a second by Commissioner Sambito. Would there like to be any discussion on this topic? Okay. All right. I will take a vote. Please put in your votes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now, in regards to future conversation, like I said in the past, please show up to the city council meeting on the 24th. And please, we are just an advisory commission, so please make sure you speak to them about any concerns about the two-story, and make sure your words are heard there. Thank you. To our favorite portion of the night, once a month, we get staff communications. Are there any this evening?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I had one for
right.
you. We would like to offer to the commission, if you're so inclined, we could do this at the end of, not every meeting, some meetings go longer than others, maybe 10, 20 minutes, whatever the commission would want. But staff could provide some information, if you would like, on terms of either zoning 101, general plan, open space, parks. We could get very specific if you'd like. We could talk walls, amenities, whatever you would like in terms of, hey, we would like to know more about this subject. I know this is a hard job to be up here. There's a lot of information that goes into these cases. We would love to provide any kind of educational or just informational type options for the commission. So if that's something you would like to take us up on, just you can email me and such, and we could always add something to the end of the agenda. Again, very short, very quick, whatever the commission would want to discuss. So we are open to that. Just, again, email me, and then we can always add it to the agenda. Topics, again, wide-ranging, or if you want us to pick something, we can do that too. So just want to offer that.
That'd be a fantastic idea. I would love to have maybe even a work study session together with staff on maybe if we just come together with some topics and we can all vet out some questions for, just because things get more complicated and, we have a fairly new group. I really just happen to remember the 2017 meeting where we talked about that just recently, and I was like, wow, I think I'm getting old, or I've been up here a little bit. But which feels good to remember something. But yeah, absolutely, I think we should put together a list of things that are very important to us and fill in some gaps of learning and a special meeting. I've obviously worked with legal to make sure that we follow quorum rules and such, but a special meeting after a shorter meeting would be fine, I think. It'd be awesome. And then again, if staff wants to put in the ear of council another work session together like we had in the past, I think that'd be amazing, because I thought the last one we did was fantastic. All right. With that, oh, awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, if I may, just to your point about the joint work session, there was a city election, so we will have one new council member that's going to be seated in January. And so I think the expectation here is that council is also likely or is also excited to have further conversations with the commission. I think what they want to do is get the new council member seated, get a little bit of feet under them first, and then have a joint work session probably sometime before the summer.
Excellent. Good.
But we'll keep you informed as that progresses.
Awesome. Oh, I did also realize that the GPR, or general plan meeting was also canceled. Is that correct?
Next week.
The next week one that we were supposed to have?
Steve?
Oh, the offsite GPA.
GPA.
Okay, general plan amendment, yes.
Yeah,
it
yes.
was canceled.
That was canceled, okay. All right, well, the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on November 2nd at 6 p.m. at Goodyear City Hall, Council Chambers. Everyone drive safe.